Hello ladies and gentlemen, Mr. T here, and we are finally done with our First Amendment. I'm so happy not to be done with it, but because now I can move on and teach you guys even more about our beautiful nation and the laws that we're run by. Okay? So, today we are starting our Second Amendment. And now your Second Amendment is your right to bear arms. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh my gosh, I hear this all the time in the news, controversial, NRA, people want to ban guns, people want more guns. I mean, it is crazy right now with all the talk on guns, whether it be for or against. It's just, gun talk is so crazy in the United States right now. And I'm going to clear up a few things for you guys, okay? I promise you, I will not let my political bias and get into this video. I am sticking straight to the facts, what the Supreme Court has said, and what the Congress has passed law-wise, okay? That's all. I'm not going to bring political bias into this. I promise you that. So, first off, we have to define what is an arm, okay? It doesn't mean this, okay? Yes, this is an arm, but that's not what the amendment means. The amendment means pretty much guns. That's kind of what the Supreme Court has ruled. So it means guns. Whether that be handguns, okay, this is a Nerf gun. I don't actually own a handgun, but it's a Nerf gun, okay, whether they be handguns, whether they be rifles, things like that, whether they be crossbows have kind of fallen into that category here and there. Crossbows are more falling into the states. Some states deem them the same thing as a gun. Some states deem them as a bow and arrow. It's really that state to state, or whether it be shotguns, okay? This is my baby. It's not loaded. Okay, but whether it means things like that, whether it means muskets, that is not a real musket, that is a toy musket I got from Knott's Berry Farm, which I actually like better than Disneyland, although I've only been to Disneyland like 3 times. But here's the thing, it means guns. That's what they mean. Things like flamethrowers or knives and swords, things like swords, whoo, that's sharp. Things like swords and even things like pocket knives and things like that. Ow, I know what you're thinking, never break in his house. Weapons like that, the Supreme Court has been kind of silent on. Even flamethrowers, okay? I know what you're thinking, flamethrowers, but I mean the big flamethrowers are things like taking an aerosol cannon next to a lighter, okay? The Supreme Court has been quiet on those. The Supreme Court has really only ruled arms as guns. That's kind of what they've done. Everything else, weapon-wise, is more up to the states. Now, getting into the actual laws and what we can and can't do, okay? I actually closed my knife on my thumb. That hurts. Now, I'm going to just start this off because there's a lot of controversy. A lot of people think the Second Amendment does not protect your right to own a gun, and you would be wrong. In 2 recent court cases, okay, D.C. or District of Columbia, which is Washington, D.C., versus Heller in 2008, and McDonald v. Chicago, versus Chicago. Both of these court cases, McDonald v. Chicago was in 2010, okay? So 2008 and 2010, these 2 court cases, the Supreme Court said, you as an American citizen do have the right to own a gun, okay? Now, there are some major stipulations on that. Does that mean like a machine gun or a .50 caliber or bazooka, things like that? No, it does not mean giant weapons. They specifically said in the court cases, or the second court case, McDonald v. Chicago, that you have the right as a law-abiding citizen, keyword, law-abiding citizen, to own a gun for lawful self-defense. Okay? Now, we're going to get into that a little more, alright? So, you can't own heavy machine guns like .50 calibers, you can't own .50 caliber sniper rifles. .50 caliber basically means, if you don't know, it means like it shoots a bullet, that the bullet is literally that big. That is literally how big the bullet is. You can see next to my face, it's a huge bullet. It can take people's limbs off, okay? You cannot own a weapon like that, okay? Another thing that, Congress passed a law that basically said, it was the Firearm Owners Protection Act, okay? Firearms Owners Protection Act. And that outlawed fully automatic weapons, okay? So you cannot, as a citizen, you cannot own a weapon that is fully automatic. And that basically means is, when you have a gun, okay, this right here, the trigger, the part you pull, when you pull that trigger, If all you do is hold it down and the gun keeps firing, that's what fully automatic means. You are not allowed to own a gun like that, period. There are some like stipulations, but they all have to do with like the government. So like the government can pass laws allowing the government officials to do it, like, you know, police officers, soldiers, things like that. But you as a private individual do not have the right to own a weapon that you only pull the trigger down and it keeps firing. That has been outlawed. Okay? Another thing that that has been outlawed is semi-automatic weapons. And semi-automatic basically means on the trigger, you press it and you just keep pressing it. Every time you press it, the gun fires. Okay? That doesn't mean, when those were banned, it meant you have to press the trigger once, the gun fires, and then you usually have something here where you pull back like that, and then you could fire again. Those types of guns, the guns where you just kept pressing the trigger, those were outlawed from 1994 to 2004. The law expired in 2004, re-allowing them. That was actually the gun that you just saw was the semi-auto. However, certain states put stipulations on them. Okay? And some of these states are more like California, New York, Illinois, and a few northeastern states. Okay? Other than that, it's not easy depending on the state. Certain states like Arizona, my beautiful state, Arizona, Texas, things like that, it's super easy to get a hold of those guns. Other states, it's kind of and then some states, it's almost impossible. You can get them, but it's like really hard to get them. However, you do have a right to own them. Now, another major thing, kind of going away from your ownership, and then I'll jump right back, but a couple other things that Congress has passed, law-wise. They did pass a law called the National Firearm Act of 1934. And all that basically did was it taxed guns. So if you make guns, like you're a company that actually makes guns, you get taxed on, or you can be taxed to make them. Okay? Now, piggybacking off that, the Supreme Court did pass another law saying that if you want to be able to make guns for sale, you have to have a federal permit. So even if you're making guns in your state just to sell in your state, you still need a federal permit. So the federal government has to give you a permit to make those guns. Okay? Now, one final thing on gun makers before I jump back to your rights to own them is if you sell a gun to someone, okay, it's the law only really pertained to manufacturers, so people who do it for a living, and not individual sellers, but I'm sure in most states, individual sellers are covered under state law. But if you own like a place where you make guns for a living, if you sell a gun to someone, you are not held responsible if you do it legally. Like if you have a permit, you know, you legally sell them. If you do everything legally on your end, and then that person goes and takes and commits a crime with the gun, you're not responsible for it. Okay? If you like secretly, behind the counter shady business type stuff, if you do that and you sell them the gun, then yeah, you can get not held responsible for the crime, but you're going to get in trouble. Okay? Now, on the flip side, back to your rights. Okay? There are a few stipulations, and the Supreme Court has upheld this. Some of those stipulations, when it comes to state, is states can basically, they can put certain restrictions, such as magazines, which the magazine is basically the thing you load into the gun. You put the bullets in it, and then you load it into the gun. States have restricted those. So they put a limit on how many bullets can be in the magazine and things like that. And the Supreme Court said, yes, that's fine. States can restrict those. Okay? Another thing that has been restricted is people who have a criminal record or have been deemed mentally ill cannot own a gun. Now that's kind of tricky in some areas. Some areas allow it, some areas don't, and it depends on the severity of it. So like if you committed a misdemeanor or something like that, like if you just, had like a parking ticket or something, like you didn't commit anything really bad, then yeah, you could probably still own a gun. But if you committed a gun and served like jail time, especially if it was a gun-related crime, you're not going to be able to buy or own a gun. Okay, one final thing that I want to bring up before we go, and I'm probably going to stay under my time, is you have to be, the Congress passed the interstate handgun trade, that's not the actual name of the law, but it outlawed you from selling guns across state lines, or handguns, and it raised the minimum age to own a handgun to 21. Okay, rifles and things like shotguns and things like I was showing you are still 18. You have to be 18 to buy them. Handguns are 21. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you want to see more, go to my website. I'll have more court cases and things like that. But you as an American do have the right to own a gun. but not any gun. Okay, there are certain restrictions and stipulations. All right, especially depending on the state you live in. I'm also going to include at the end of this video, after the credits, a list of states based on how strict or how non-strict their gun laws are. Okay, there's also a whole mess load of websites out there you can see too. Alright, so, ladies and gentlemen, as always, stay beautiful, Americans. Go buy a gun if you want, and if you don't, well, that's also your right to not own a gun. So, thank you, I'm out of time, and come back next week for the Third Amendment so you can know when you can tell a soldier they are not allowed to stay in your home. Unless you want them to. That's totally different. So, oh, almost forgot. Stay beautiful, Americans. Oh, I'm falling.